Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to probably the 20th, 22nd, 24th, 25th Manchester United therapy show on the channel. Manchester United suffer another loss this season, 13 in the league, a record since 1977, but this has been probably the biggest and worst loss yet. This has probably been the worst that we've played, and that was a 4-0 loss to Crystal Palace, and we'll give Crystal Palace credit. They did a very good job. They played very well. Elise absolutely ran the show, but why are we giving Elise that much space? Kobbie Mainoo was hung out to dry with that formation. Absolutely no support whatsoever. Relying on an 18-year-old to do 4 players' jobs at once. I mean, structurally pathetic, tactically embarrassing, no defensive shape, no pressing structure, so many question marks. And as always, as I said, if Man United don't win, there will be reports coming out saying Ten Hag's getting sacked. And today, there's reports coming out saying that Ten Hag will be sacked. INEOS have decided to sack Ten Hag. None of these are tier 1 sources. None of these are super reliable sources. But I do think it's over for Ten Hag. I don't think they will tell us that Ten Hag is sacked until after the FA Cup final. But I think Ten Hag is sacked. I'll be honest, I think it's over for Ten Hag. I think he is gone. I think they won't announce it. There's a rumour that INEOS are going to announce Ten Hag being sacked tonight, and that INEOS have made their decision. I don't know if that's true. It's tier 2, tier 3 sources, Twitter rumours. But I do think that Ten Hag is sacked. I do think he's gone. I do think he's probably going to be announced at the FA Cup. And, it's a shame. I want Ten Hag to succeed. I don't want him to be sacked. But I don't think Ten Hag can complain. I don't think I can be too outraged as much as I wanted Ten Hag to stay and succeed if he is sacked, because this has been pathetic. But those players are giving up as well. Those players need to be held accountable. You can sack Ten Hag all you want, but those players need to be held accountable because those players are giving up. Those players aren't playing to save their managers' jobs. Those players are saying, well, we can be here next season, you won't, and we've given up. Delot plays for the manager. Bruno plays for the manager. Not many others play for the manager right now. Johnny Evans plays for the manager because he failed a fitness test and wasn't fit to play, and he played injured. Maguire's played injured. Johnny Evans has played injured. McTominay's played injured. Bruno's played injured. Delot's played injured. Garnacho's done everything. Mainoo's done everything. They play for the manager. But a lot of these players don't. A lot of these players, Casemiro's head's in Saudi Arabia. Christian Eriksen's head is in, I don't know, wherever he retires. I mean, a lot of our players have completely fallen off. And yes, some of it is down to the players not being good enough. And I think some players have given up the season and zoned out. Some of it is down to Ten Hag's tactics, which are pretty much misprofiling our players and not getting the best out of players. I mean, to line up with Eriksen, Mount and Mainoo midfield free against Crystal Palace and allow Elise and Eze to have all the space and try and get Mainoo to do it all was so tactically naive. What does Amrabat got to do to play over Eriksen? You can't tell me that Amrabat is any slower and could do any less than Eriksen. Do you know what I mean? Like, Amrabat's played one game with Mainoo in the pivot and we've got 0-0 versus Liverpool. You cannot tell me that Amrabat could have done a worse job than Eriksen. Yes, Eriksen's good on the ball, but off the ball, useless. Do you know what I mean? Like, he can't do it. You can't tell me Amrabat would be any worse than Eriksen off the ball. Casemiro, he's playing out of position, he's playing centre-back, but his head's in Saudi Arabia. I hate to say it, but I think Casemiro's finished. Part of it is Ten Hag's tactics, of course. Part of it is the fact that the way we set up is hanging the players out to dry and they're all being misprofiled and it doesn't help any player. No player's going to play good in this current setup. Of course, Ten Hag's making every player play worse. But some of these players are just an absolute joke. Some of these players are an absolute disgrace. And I hope you haven't got any lag, guys. But my head is gone. What's the stream quality like? Is there a little bit of lag coming out as well? Amrabat better tackling, Eriksen better with ball. I prefer Amrabat. And I think in a game like that, when we're so poor out of possession, we probably needed someone like Amrabat on the pitch today. Please do hit that like button if you have not already, and of course subscribe down below if you're new, because we are going to go ahead and get into the news, reports, rumours, stories going about. We've got some interesting reports on Tuchel and Ten Hag coming out that we are going to dive into, so make sure to subscribe for that. Stream quality is all okay. These players are dangerous. Van Gaal. I mean, look, we're in the same situation we were with Louis Van Gaal. We knew that Van Gaal was sacked, but we went to the FA Cup final, we won it, and they sacked him after. Even if Ten Hag wins the FA Cup final, I think he's sacked. How do you sell a sick note to players? Honestly, I feel like some of these players are just like, you know what, I'm a little bit hurt. I could play, but do I want to play in this mess? No, so I'm going to. I feel like that's going on at the club as well. The players have given up. New defender, new midfielder, new attacker. How can we get a whole new 11 in one window? It feels like that at the moment. We need a CM, a DM, a striker, a right wing and 2 centre-backs and a left-back at least. Completely agree with that comment. And Erik Ten Hag is obviously coming up short late, but these players diabolical yesterday, yeah. And that's why I don't want to blame it all on Ten Hag. Like, Ten Hag has to take some fault, and I would say that this is my opinion. I want Ten Hag to stay and succeed at Manchester United, and I really enjoyed what Ten Hag did at Ajax, and I saw things in Ten Hag's first season, and part of me still believes that Ten Hag can be a successful manager with the right club players and structures. But as someone that is trying to give Ten Hag as much leniency as I can, because I know the biggest problem at this club is the owners, followed by the recruitment, the structure, the environment, followed by the players. When you're set up that bad tactically, it's hard to support Ten Hag. If INEOS sacked Ten Hag, I can't get mad about that. I want Ten Hag to stay and succeed, but if INEOS sacked Ten Hag, fair enough. My stance right now on Ten Hag is INEOS have got the experts in. They've got Jason Wilcox in, they've got Dan Ashworth in, they've got Omar Barada in. If the experts think sacking Ten Hag is the best solution and bringing in Thomas Tuchel, fair enough. I back that because you are the experts. That's how I feel right now. But for me, if they sack Ten Hag and they keep these players and they don't sell these players, you might as well just sack the next manager and the next manager after that, because these players, they've got to stop being untouchable. They've got to go. For me, the biggest thing this summer is not what we do with the manager. People are saying whatever we do with the manager this summer's make or break. If we go into next season with Ten Hag, write it off. Some people are saying no, don't care. I think Ten Hag could succeed next season if INEOS do keep him. The most important thing is that clear out, getting them out, because the more you get out, the more money you have to spend to get more in. And it is that summer rebuild. And INEOS have got a lot of work to do, a lot of work to do, because I am so fed up. I want Elise. Look how good Elise was. I want to see Elise in a Manchester United shirt next season. Do you think Elise is going to want to come to Man United when he sees that? No. That's another worrying thing. That's another thing that gets me upset. Do you know what I mean as well? Team's a mess. Players need to go before Ten Hag. The players and manager are both trash. I mean, we can't just blame the players. Ten Hag is not getting the best out of them and is profiling them and not setting up the team correctly. But the players themselves are a disgrace. It's a mixture of the players. It's a mixture of Ten Hag. Ultimately, I feel that Ten Hag needs to go. I think you make a fair comment there. If Ten Hag stays, I'm happy. If INEOS sack Ten Hag and replace him with another manager, I'll back INEOS to do that, because I think if Ten Hag is sacked, you can't complain. As someone that has been Ten Hag and as someone that's been very supportive of Ten Hag, and I know the biggest problem is the players. If he is sacked, you can't completely blame INEOS, because these performances warrant the sacking. Team or not, 50% of the team injured or not, lineup or not. Lineup was atrocious. Lineup was atrocious when I saw the lineup and knew we weren't going to beat Crystal Palace. But if you lose 2-1 and you put up a bit of fight, fair. If you lose 4-0, disgrace. When we lost 4-0, do you know what I mean as well? This club is in danger. We want all our players out, but who's going to buy them? That's the worrying thing as well. The jumping on managers is just absurd these days. It's like every club's fans think the answer is always sack the manager. Spurs fans are starting to turn on Ange. And I agree, Spurs fans shouldn't be turning on Ange. I would like Ten Hag to stay and succeed, because I know there's big problems at United, and I don't think many managers can fix us right now. And I think the Ten Hag replacements aren't the best names. But I do understand if INEOS sacked Ten Hag, because we have been set up so bad tactically. I'm aware of injuries. I'm aware of the players being disgraced. I'm aware of the players being the biggest problem. But I can't blame INEOS if they sack Ten Hag, and I can't blame people for being Ten Hag out when we've watched performances like that most of the season. You can't. Good, it's time to sack Ten Hag. I'll be celebrating. And you, Alice, do you think you'll get good football out of Ten Hag? You definitely need to get your head tested. I think we saw it at Ajax. Ten Hag played good football at Ajax, and this is how I feel with Ten Hag. Is this the Manchester United curse? Is this the Man United curse, where a good manager comes to United and they're crap, like a good player comes to United and they're crap, and then they leave United and they're a good manager again? Or is Ten Hag not cut out for the top level? That's the thing. And the reason I back in Ten Hag is because I feel like all these good managers come to United and they become bad managers. And it makes me feel like United is the problem, not the manager. However, maybe to fix Man United, you also need to change the manager. And I think that's what INEOS will be thinking and what INEOS will be feeling as well. We have played badly this season. I gave up on Ten Hag earlier, says Adelaide. I mean, we have played absolutely atrocious this season. Someone said Steve Bruce would get us playing better. I don't think that. The thing is, we've been linked to Amarim, we've been linked to Motta, who's obviously going to Juventus. We've been linked to some good managers. We've been linked to Nagelsmann. But if you look at this team and the way that Nagelsmann, Amarim, and Motta play, this team could not do anything anything under those managers. So I do have that sympathy with Ten Hag of, physically and technically, we don't have players able to play the way that Ten Hag wants to play. We don't have players with the IQ able to play the Ten Hag wants to play. But when the setup and the pressing structure and the formation is so bad and we're conceding that many shots, it just becomes more and more difficult to say, you know what, Fair enough, Ten Hag. And I'm going to show you my match review, and then I want to get into news on Tuchel. I want to get into news on Mourinho. I want to get into news on INEOS looking at interim manager. I do actually want to get into the news, but I do want to quickly talk about this before I get into the news on sort of INEOS apparently looking at interim. And this was my match review, and I'm not going to dive into the whole thing. But look at this. 81 goals conceded this season, the most in a single campaign since 1977. 13 club losses this season, the club losses for the most amount of losses Man United have suffered in a Premier League season. In 2024, Manchester United have conceded the most shots and have the highest XG conceded of any team, worse than Sheffield United. We've been defensively worse in every statistic metric than Sheffield United. They've just conceded more goals than us because we've had Maguire and Moran do some last-minute great defending. 21 goals conceded in last 8 games, 8th with -3 goal difference. And do you know what? Sometimes we've lost games like Brighton. We lost to Brighton 3-1. And Højlund scored and it was ruled out for BS reasons. And we were really good the first 20 minutes versus Brighton, but it was a disgrace. We lost 3-1 and we were crap. But at least there was positive. We beat Brighton 3-1, like all the first 20 minutes. All Højlund did this. Today, there wasn't one positive. There wasn't one period in that Crystal Palace game where United were on top. There wasn't even like a 10-minute period, minute 50 to minute 60, where we were on top. We were never on top. And the only thing I can take out of this, and the only positive I can take out of that Manchester United game is, okay, Crystal Palace have Dougie Freedman, who went out and got Adam Morton, who got Eze, who got Glasner, who got Elise. You know, Crystal Palace have got Dougie Freedman, one of the best sporting directors, top of class. The only positive I can think of is what a good job Dougie Freedman's done with Palace. And look at Palace right now. I wish United were playing like Palace right now. So the only positive I can think of is, well, INEOS want the Dougie Freedman. So hopefully we'll start to recruit good players and we'll start to play good football and build a team. That's the only positive I can think of. I mean, Casemiro, Eriksen look finished. Wan-Bissaka's been poor. Maino's been hung out to dry. But you have to put some fault on Ten Hag. I said here, no pressing structure, attacking patterns, non-existent defensive shape. And those factors are not a one-off. This has been happening all season. We've been conceding 30 shots because of that all season. And today we conceded 4 goals. We create absolutely nothing without Bruno Fernandez in the team, and we're so reliant on him. And I want Ten Hag to succeed because I'm aware these players and those above Ten Hag, recruitment and Glazers, are a massive problem. And they are the main reason we're a mess. But even with injuries, I can't defend the tactics today. I can't defend it at all. You know, we're not physically able to compete with other Premier League teams. We're not technically able to play the way Ten Hag wants. And I've got sympathy for Ten Hag, the recruitment, how bad it's been. But you've got 6 of those players in the starting 11 on 150k a week. Well, most of the starting 11 were brought in the last 2 years by Ten Hag or the manager before Ten Hag. We could have lost that game 7-0. If you lose 2-1 and you put up a fight and you have a good 30-minute spell, it's not as bad. You go, look at the team, fair enough, Palace. But when you lose 4-0 and you could have lost 7-0, you have to look at it and go, you know what? Elements of that, completely unacceptable. Completely and utterly unacceptable. And I don't know if you saw what Jamie Carragher was posting, but statistically, Man United are the worst team in the league. Statistically, the worst team in the league defensively. In 2024, we've statistically been the worst team in the league. We're completely overperforming to even be in 6th. When you actually look at Man United and how they've played this season, we probably should be about 15th, but we've got that quality that, and we've managed to overperform to get 6th place. Because we have been absolutely shocking this season. It's been unforgivable. I mean, this, and I'm sure you saw this earlier in my match reaction, but this is the defensive records in 2024. Manchester United, and this was before the game, Manchester United have now conceded the most XG in 2024. Manchester United have now conceded the most shots in 2024. Every week there's a statistic that just shows you how bad Man United are, and that they're one of the worst teams in the league. Crystal Palace have more goals than us this season. And Crystal Palace had Roy Hodgson for half the season, playing some of the most boring football. It's unbelievable how bad we've been. It is a disgrace. It is unforgivable how bad we've been. And that, again, mostly on the players. Bigger problem recruitment, bigger problem owners. But Ten Hag has to take some responsibility as well. I don't think we can just blame the players, but I think we can put a lot of blame on them. It's crazy how we're not 15th. We should be 15th, really, when you actually think of how we've been playing. I thought Mount wasn't fully fit. Started the game okay, but fizzled out. He hasn't started since October. Yeah, I'm not going to go with Mason Mount and Johnny Evans get free pass because they're not fully fit and they're playing because we've got no one else to play. Mason Mount and Johnny Evans weren't fully fit to start that game, so they get free pass. But other than that, the rest of the team was an absolute disgrace yesterday. an absolute disgrace. I mean, Delo had an okay first half, maybe, and Onana made a couple of saves, but nobody was good. I don't think you can't even say Onana was good, and Onana stopped it being 7-0. Onana was pretty crap as well. Nobody was good. Everybody was bad. It was absolutely shocking as well. Wan-Bissaka shouldn't be playing left back. Casemiro shouldn't be playing centre back. It's on Ten Hag. Well, it's not on Ten Hag, because if Casemiro doesn't play centre back, we have to put a 17-year-old at centre back. And if Wan-Bissaka doesn't play left back, we've got to put a 17-year-old at left back. And right now, I'd rather see the 17-year-old at left back and centre back, because the season's over. You might as well play the youth, because Casemiro and Wan-Bissaka aren't on our plans. This young left back and this young centre back could be in our plans. But realistically, you can't blame Ten Hag for not wanting to start two 17-year-olds against Crystal Palace away from home when they've got Elise and Eze. You can't completely blame Ten Hag. Like, yes, Klopp brought on a load of 17, 18-year-olds in the cup final in extra time with 20 minutes to go, and it worked. And that makes me think, you know what, we've got nothing to lose. Let's just bring on the kids. But with all the injuries, Ten Hag has to somewhat start that lineup. But he could have swapped Anthony for Ahmad, and he could have swapped Eriksen for Amrabat. If he just started Amrabat and he just started Ahmad, I'd have said he started his best 11 with what's available. Because again, Anthony, 60 minutes, he didn't do anything. He's hooked off first, didn't do anything. Shocking performance, embarrassing performance from Anthony. Christian Eriksen, embarrassing performance. Casemiro just broke the record for being dribbled past the most times in the Premier League game this season in 8. Absolutely shocking performance. Yes, he's out of position, but Casemiro was absolutely shocking. It's hard to defend him. So many negatives. And the graph says it all. I can't imagine Casemiro would be putting in such poor effort. Kept stepping into midfield off the ball and walking back. Casemiro looks lost. He looks done. He looks mentally drained. He looks like his head's in Saudi. I appreciate what Casemiro did last season, but for me, he's gone. Maybe we should play Louis Jackson, Harry Amos next game. Maybe we should as well. For me, you know, we've got to sell our players and we've got to invest as well. Players like Casemiro on 18 million a year in wages. Man United must get him out. Can't believe he's on a 4-year contract. Do you even think Saudi will go for him? These were injuries from the start of the season, and yet we let a whole transfer window go to waste. I know. Do you know what's annoying is? And I guess the medical team did say, we'd have both the left backs back, but we didn't do anything in January. We knew that the season was a mess. We knew that we had an injury crisis, and we didn't do anything in January as well. This was Bruno Fernandez's first club game missed due to an injury in his entire career. That says it all. If Bruno's getting injured, you know that there's something wrong with the way we're training this season. True. Bruno was going to get injured, though, just the fact that he's been playing into the last couple of games. But, you know, you got Man United fans saying, Bruno will never be a top club with Bruno and Rashford. They're toxic. They're the worst thing at this club. And while Rashford has been a disgrace this season, you know, all I'm saying is one Premier League game we've played without Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford since Ten Hag's been here. And I think that was probably our worst Premier League game we've played. So if you seriously think that Bruno and Rashford are holding Man United back from succeeding, you need to give your head a wobble. Because right now, they're the least of our problems, particularly Bruno. Rashford, different question with this season. But Bruno Fernandes is the least of the problems at Manchester United. He's not a problem as well. But I look at that defensive graph that they've got up. And I look at the fact that Bruno Fernandes has created the most chances in the Premier League this season as well. And I think, how can you blame Bruno? How can you think Bruno's the problem at United when we are conceding that many amount of shots and Bruno is our sole chance creator? Bruno's created 40% of United's chances this season as well. It's ridiculous. Tuchel wants the Man United job, and we will talk about Thomas Tuchel to United because he's basically begging for the United job as well. Bruno, much bigger risk than Rashford. He deserves the team. He never stops working. I agree. Rashford's a bit of a different question, but I do think this theory that Rashford, you know, if we don't play Rashford, will be better is not true. Rashford's been crap this season, and he should be dropped for Ahmad. But it's not just about selling Rashford and Bruno, but Bruno especially. He gives everything. He's been playing with a broken hand. Bruno Fernandes deserves so much more respect as well. Bruno's hand injury hardly down to training, but he's had other muscular issues been down to training as well. Criticising Casemiro's performance this season is unfair, as he's been exposed by poor Ten Hag tactics, playing other midfielders up the pitch, leaving the DM row with a lot of ground to go. And I agree to an extent. Casemiro's fall off isn't completely his fault, but Maino's done better in the Casemiro this season. No, you know, everyone that's played in that 6 row has had a stinker of a game because structurally it's set up to be an impossible job, and it's not completely Casemiro's fault. It's fall off, but he needs to do better than what he's doing. He has to. You know, structurally we don't help. But, I mean, these performances from Casemiro are a joke. It is 50-50. It's 50 Casemiro, 50 tactics as well. 11 years on, we've still got a Sir Alex Ferguson hangover. No one will ever match him. Your expectations ruin any future management. Well, I'm hoping with INEOS that changes. INEOS are coming in. Glazers are no longer making decisions. I'm hoping now INEOS come in that we're going to get back on track. because we're so far off where we need to be. It's embarrassing as well. I don't see what United gained from sacking him today. Maybe they'll wait 2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, I don't think United will sack Ten Hag today. There's a rumour and some stories going about that INEOS have decided to sack Ten Hag, and they could announce that tonight. But I personally don't believe that they will. And the reason I personally don't believe that INEOS will sack Ten Hag tonight is because you see that Bayern and Barcelona announced that Tuchel and Xavi are leaving. Then they went out to try and find a replacement, and they couldn't. Barcelona said Xavi's staying now. Bayern Munich have reached out to Tuchel and asked him to stay now because they've been rejected by everybody else. INEOS won't want to make the same mistake. I don't think INEOS are going to announce Ten Hag's departure until they've got their next manager in. Now, reportedly, INEOS wants Thomas Tuchel to be the next manager, but they will not have talks with Thomas Tuchel until the Champions League is over because he's focusing on that. So even though they know Tuchel wants to come, there won't be any official agreement or deal sorted until the Champions League final that can be announced. So I think that INEOS will just stick with Ten Hag to the end of the season. Then when the Champions League and FA Cup final was over, they sacked Ten Hag to replace him with Tuchel. I don't think they'll sack Ten Hag and bring in an interim. I don't think they're sacking Ten Hag because once they've announced sacking Ten Hag, that puts them in a position where they need to find a replacement. And while it looks like they're going to get Tuchel, it's not, nailed on, signed, deal done. So I think one of the reasons I can't imagine Ten Hag being sacked today is because INEOS can't do anything with Tuchel until he's out of the Champions League, because then that's when INEOS will communicate with Tuchel. Let's say Bayern Munich knock out, let's say Real Madrid knock out Bayern Munich today, or is it tomorrow? Today or tomorrow? Let's say Real Madrid knock out Bayern Munich tomorrow. Maybe later this week, and Man United have talks with Tuchel once they've been knocked out. Maybe later this week we find out that Thomas Tuchel is going to be the next manager of United. Maybe later this week. But I don't think we'll hear anything until Thursday. If they sack Ten Hag, the earliest they'd announce something is Thursday, and that is because Bayern would be out of the cup. Because I think if they sack Ten Hag, Bayern will be the replacement. I don't believe the Southgate crap. I don't believe the De Zerbi stuff. And the reason I think he's not sacked today, despite rumours that INEOS are going to sack him today, maybe INEOS have had a meeting and said he's sacked, but they're not. But I don't think they'd announce it today. INEOS could have a meeting today and say Ten Hag is sacked, but I don't think they'll announce it till the end of the season. I really don't. Personally as well. Onana's starting to fall off again as well. I agree. Guys, please do hit the like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Share the video as well. Most of these contracts run till 2026, big wages, and definitely no buyers stuck with them. Sadly, we are stuck with a lot of the players here as well. I would like De Zerbi, considering Brighton are a small club, lost their midfield last summer, injury hit, and not in a relegation battle, and play better football than us. De Zerbi's a bit like Ten Hag, a bit stubborn. When his one way of playing doesn't work, he doesn't change it. Has he been found out? Pep Guardiola in his multiple years at Manchester City has had 3 different styles of plays that he's adapted, formations where he's changed because he's started to get figured out. And De Zerbi doesn't do that. Ten Hag doesn't do that. I think to be an elite manager at the top, you've got to change things when maybe you start to get figured out as well. If they do second be after the FA Cup final, that's what I believe as well. Whatever way Ten Hag trains this team, players are dropping like flies in training, doesn't rotate the team, doesn't rotate the keeper last season, which to be honest, I agree with. I think that, some of it is luck, some of it's down to not having a fitness coach and the injury staff that Ten Hag wanted in, but some of it must be down to training routine as well. There's a little bit of information coming out on Ten Hag's future, though, that I did want to get into, because obviously that is the title of today's video. There's a suggestion that Ten Hag could be sacked today, so I want to get into and, of course, read those stories. So the first story that came out was by the Manchester Evening News, and that was said that Thomas Tuchel is an option to become the new Manchester United manager. Thomas Tuchel would like to become the Manchester United manager, and once his Champions League campaign's finished with Bayern Munich, we'll have discussions with Manchester United. It was said by Florian Plettenberg that the loose contact between United and Thomas Tuchel is ongoing. The door has been closed on him staying at Bayern Munich for a very long time, and the most appealing destination to Tuchel would be United or return to Chelsea. It looks more like Ten Hag will go than Poch, due to Ten Hag ending the season much worse than Poch, and Tuchel will be very much open to the United job, but will not have talks till later on. But there has been some loose contact between United and Tuchel, is what was said. Then you've got Samuel Luckhurst saying that Jose Mourinho would love to manage Manchester United, does not want to reappoint the Portuguese. Mourinho has told confidence he would walk to Manchester United, walk to manage Man United again. Some even suggest that Mourinho would be happy to even manage United for these last 2 games of the season as an interim, which is interesting there, because do you know what? If there's one game I'd want Jose Mourinho to manage, it's a cup final. So if you want to sack Ten Hag and bring Jose Mourinho in for the cup final as an interim, that's probably the one game you'd want him to play as well. It was also said as well by Sam C Reports and Ahmed Media Reports on his potential future jobs. Erik Ten Hag's representatives have urged INEOS to make a decision swiftly on his position. Ten Hag has been ringing up and speaking to INEOS saying, just let me know if I'm staying or going. Ten Hag's getting wound up. Ten Hag had no communication about his future, and Ten Hag feels he's gone. There's reports coming out that Ten Hag feels he's gone. He's getting no communication on his future if he's staying or going. He's urging INEOS to tell him something. Ten Hag thinks he could be gone. And when Ten Hag is saying, post-match, after we lose, I take responsibility, not the players, I take responsibility. Every manager does that just before they get sacked. The way Ten Hag is acting, I take responsibility for this, I take responsibility for that. Ten Hag is acting as if he knows he's being sacked as well. He really is. Tuchel's a mistake, doesn't play the youth. There's definitely fears about Tuchel. I think Tuchel's a good manager and a great tactician, but I think if INEOS want to build something long-term with the youth, which is what they're trying to do and create United DNA, I don't know if Tuchel's the right fit for that as well. I think that Tuchel's a decent manager, but I think what we want to do, I'm not sure he's the right fit as well. I want 15 players gone and Ten Hag replaced, and that's fair enough. I mean, look, I'm going to just back what INEOS do. If INEOS sack Ten Hag, fair enough. If they keep Ten Hag, fair enough. I'm going to back what INEOS do, because I don't think Ten Hag's the biggest problem at this club. But one thing is, at least 10 players got to leave. Brandon Williams, Wan-Bissaka, Martial, Eriksen, Amrabat, Lindelof, Wan-Bissaka, Casemiro, Sancho, Greenwood, Pellistri, Mejbri. I mean, so many players got to go. And some of those players that I've named are all right players, but they're not going to be at Man United's future. Antony, for me, has got to go as well. I mean, some of it is an absolute disgrace at the moment as well. Tuchel does play youth. He did at Chelsea, not so much at Bayern. Yeah, I mean, he does play it, but I think he sort of likes players and he doesn't like players, and that's the worry there. Who do you think Tuchel would like at United? I think Tuchel would probably like someone like Delot. I think he'd love Bruno Fernandez. I think he'd like Mal because he likes him at Chelsea. I think there's Maino he'd like. There's definitely players at Man United Tuchel would like. I think he'd like Maguire. Thomas Tuchel. There's definitely players at Man United that Tuchel would like, and I think he'd like McTominay. He'd want him McTominay at Bayern. I want McTominay sold because I think this is the last summer we can really cash in and get some money from McTominay. However, with how bad Eriksen, Amrabat, and Casemiro have been, you might have to keep McTominay next season because you can't sell the whole midfield. But I think Thomas Tuchel would favour McTominay and play him, to be honest with you guys as well. Someone says Lindelof needs to stay. I'd sell Lindelof, not good enough, been injured all season. And I think Maguire's a better centre-back than Lindelof, and Lindelof can't even stay fit at the moment. Someone said, get rid of Bruno and Rashford, we need a proper rebuild. Look at where we didn't play yesterday with Bruno and Rashford. Okay? Long term, we might need to get rid of Rashford. And long term, with Bruno age, we might need to move him on. But you cannot tell me right now that you would get rid of Bruno and Rashford this summer. I think that's crazy. I think it's crazy. I mean, I understand Rashford. Rashford isn't so crazy. But Bruno, if you sell Bruno this summer, I think you're mad. When you look at that Man United team, when you look at there's about 12 players that are an absolute disgrace, when you look at the recruitment, the board, the structure, the environment, when you look at Ten Hag's tactics, how can you tell me that Bruno Fernandez is the problem in this club when he is the one player that has played through injury, hamstring issues, injuries, broken wrist, only player that's put in good performances, I think, in these last 2 months, probably going to win Premier League Player of the Month. How can you say the guy that gives everything for this club, the guy that deserves better than this club, the guy that the only reason he has poor performances a lot lately, I think is because he's dragged down by the environment he's in. I don't think any Man United player, you could bring prime Lionel Messi into this Man United team, and I think we'd make prime Lionel Messi play crap because of the misprofiling, the ladder structure, and the lack of identity to the squad. Bruno Fernandes goes to Portugal and puts in man of the match performances every time, making Bernardo Silva look bang average compared to him. I don't understand how you can think Bruno's the problem. Bruno was good and Bruno deserves better at this club. Maybe in 2 years' time, you might say we need to move on Bruno, we need to move past it. Fair enough. But if you think you'd sell Bruno ahead of Lindelof, Wan-Bissaka, Sancho, Greenwood, Antony, Eriksen, Casemiro, I think that's madness. 150 likes, people. Please hit the like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Rashford leaving will be similar to what Arteta did with Ozil and Aubameyang. And I understand Rashford leaving because of how poor he's been this season. But ultimately, the one reason I back Rashford a little bit is, for me, Antony, Sancho and Greenwood need to go before Rashford goes. And I don't think we can sell 4 wingers because then we'd have to bring in two in. And I don't trust United to find 2 good wingers and bring them in for the right price. But if a massive bid comes in for Rashford, I'd understand if INEOS sell him. Get rid of the players first, then replace the manager if needed, says Nick. I mean, the most important thing for me isn't what we do with the manager this summer. It's what we do with those players, because most of them are an absolute disgrace to this club and not good enough as well. Bruno, Mount and Maino are the only midfielders I keep, and I agree with that as well. I mean, Mount was particularly poor yesterday and Maino was hung out to dry and he wasn't great, but we know that there's quality in Maino, and I think that Mount can be a decent player. But yeah, the rest of the midfield can go. For me, I think United should go out there and sign Fofana with Monaco. He's a 6/8 hybrid, and maybe even look at someone like João Gomez. I think that's what United should probably do, in my opinion, as well. Alice, how are you feeling about United this season? Not happy, and I think that's quite obvious. The club is an absolute mess. We've gone through the statistics. I think Ten Hag is gone, and I wanted Ten Hag to stay and succeed, but I think he's gone, and I can't blame INEOS if they do decide to sack Ten Hag. There are rumours of Ten Hag being sacked later on. I don't think that happened. I think he'll be sacked at the end of the season. But it has been an absolute disgrace this season. It has been an absolute joke. Do you know what? I feel like we hit rock bottom, and then we always find a new rock bottom. I thought like rock bottom was the other week, crap loss, and then no, this is rock bottom. And next week versus Arsenal, we could lose 7-8 now, and that's rock bottom. It just gets worse and worse and worse, and I'm scared about Arsenal the weekend. You know, we've got Arsenal next. That, for me, that is terrifying. I don't think we're going to beat Arsenal. I'm worried we're going to get battered to Arsenal. Bournemouth are a much better side than us, and Bournemouth were all over us, completely outplayed us when we played Bournemouth. And Arsenal beat them 3-0 like it was nothing. Arsenal beat them 3-0 like it's nothing. Part of that squad have been here since they downed tools on Jose and did the same to Ollie, Ralph and Ten Hag, which again is another reason why I have elements of sympathy for Ten Hag. I'll be critical of Ten Hag, and I can completely understand why people are Ten Hag out, and I completely understand if INEOS sat Ten Hag. But when you look at the players and how bad they've been consistently over the years, and how many managers they've thrown under the bus, you have a little bit of sympathy for Ten Hag. Reportedly, Jason Wilcox does have sympathy for Ten Hag. He thinks that the injury crisis has gotten out of hand, and he's supportive of Ten Hag in that environment, which, you know, is fair enough if that is the case. I think, you know, there are rumours that Wilcox has been shocked by how, you know, little Ten Hag's been backed and how little communication he's had in the environment at United, which could buy Ten Hag time. I think the players and the environment could buy Ten Hag time with INEOS, but I just think INEOS have decided to sack him. I think after watching that, I just don't think there's a way back for Ten Hag in INEOS's eyes. Like, I'd like Ten Hag to succeed and everything, and I'm not, you know, I don't really want Ten Hag to be sacked because I'm not convinced on replacements. But I think INEOS watched that and have probably decided to sack him. I think INEOS have probably decided to sack him, but they won't announce it after the FA Cup final. I think I'm getting to the point where personally I'd be surprised if he stays. I really would. I'd like him to stay and succeed, but I'd be really surprised if he does. We just knocked the camera there. There we go. It's a little bit blurry. Mason Greenwood off to Atletico Madrid. Apparently so. Atletico Madrid and Juventus interested in Greenwood. Manchester United hoping, actually, interesting report that came out, to get about 80 million for Greenwood and, of course, Sancho combined. Hopefully that is the case, and then we can invest that in Elise and elsewhere as well. We have a little better chance in the final without Ten Hag. I mean, I've got a question for you guys. I mean, let me know in the chat. Would you bring in an interim for the cup final? Because it sounds crazy. Like, do you trust Ten Hag to beat City in the cup final, or do you think we've got a better chance with an interim? Because to be honest, I don't think we've got a better chance with an interim. I don't think there's any point bringing in an interim for one game. I think it's a little bit like, what can you expect an interim to do in 1 week? Especially when Ten Hag can't get these players moving in 2 years. I don't know what you can expect an interim to do in 1 week. So personally, I would just stick it out with Ten Hag to the end of the season. Although Jose coming as an interim cup final, we know what Jose's like, but I would stick it out to the end of the season, and then I assume INEOS sack him there. But would you guys even consider bringing in an interim for the cup final? Let me know your thoughts. There are reports and rumours that INEOS are looking to do that, but it's Twitter rumours. There's no credibility to those rumours whatsoever as well. Guys, 500 people watching, 141 likes. Can we hit 200 likes? If just half of you watching goes and hits that like button, we can get closer to the 200 like target as well. Some of you open to replacing Ten Hag with an interim as well. People were saying, would you replace Onana? I mean, look, maybe next season we'll have to replace Onana. If he's poor next season, we'll have to replace Onana summer 2025. But we've got bigger priorities than replacing Onana this summer. We've got 2 centre-backs, a left-back, 2 midfielders, a right-wing and a striker that's needed before we can even think about replacing Onana as well. No point sacking Ten Hag. Someone said no, sack him, let McLaren manage to the rest of the season. I don't think that's going to get much better as well. Bring in Bruce. I'm assuming you're a Newcastle fan or something as well. No, it's madness to change the gaffer right before the final. When Spurs did that, totally blew up in their face, which is a good point from Alex as well. Because of the joss around him, no point sacking Ten Hag. No manager's going to get them playing well in the cup final, which is fair enough. I do want to get into a few stories about United looking to sell Sancho and Greenwood. INEOS apparently have reportedly decided to sack Ten Hag, but they won't communicate that to the end of the season. That's what some people are saying. Some rumours are saying that Ten Hag could be sacked tonight, but I don't think they would sack him tonight because, for me, there's rumours that Ten Hag could get sacked today and sacked tonight, but it makes no sense because then they'd have to bring in an interim, and I don't think INEOS will bring in an interim manager. I really don't think that they will. So I think we've got Ten Hag for the cup final to Spurs blew up every final they did. Big Sam is available. Oh my. Man United are similar to Newcastle. They need to sell, but who will buy players that you want gone for the money and the wages they ask for? And that's the worrying thing. The only positive, and I said this in my match reaction from their matches, at least if INEOS were 50-50 about selling some of those players, they'll be 100% sure they want to sell some of those players now in the summer. But who's going to buy Anthony? Like, Anthony needs to go, but who's going to come in and bid for Anthony? Who's going to come in and buy Anthony? You know, with 200k a week as well. After watching that performance, who's going to want Casemiro? Wan-Bissaka could be one we struggled to sell, and I thought we'd be finding it easy to sell Wan-Bissaka. Fully fit Leach may at least prevent an absolute annihilation in the final, hopefully. Midfield structure is still the biggest problem, because I think sometimes we've actually defended well and our defenders have been good, but we've conceded because of midfield structure, and Leach will get no support from that. We need, for me, cup final, we need good structure, we need to set up defensively, we need Varane, we need Martinez, we need our best squad we can find. We need Luke Shaw as well, but I don't know if he'll be back. Luke Shaw's pushing to get back for the Euros, but I don't think he'll be back. But listen, people, I'm going to wrap up today's Man United Therapy show. It was more of a Man United Therapy discussion, so the news show where we go through the chat and we get into your comments. But I will be back tonight for an actual news show where we go through news and information as well. So yeah, big up everybody in the chat. Thank you for watching. Please do hit a like. Please do hit that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. See you next time. Bye.